Hey there, this is Darren from Property Partners, and today is a very special video that I really wanted to launch it as fast as I can because we are about 1 month away from a unique opportunity that if you do qualify for it, I think it's something worth considering. So that's the reason why we actually launched this video as early as we can, because if you do qualify for it, there are some back planning that is required to be done. So by launching it early, if you are able to reach out to our team early, that will give us some time to also check on your eligibility to make sure that you can position yourself to take advantage of this unique opportunity. So what am I talking about? Of course, it's the executive condo market. So this market here is not new to a lot of people. Some people have already heard of it. Some people are already invested in it. But to me, there are some misconceptions about the market regarding certain terms. So I want to use this opportunity today to clarify. So there are 5 things I want to go through today very quickly. Firstly is the eligibility of it. Of course, most of you might already know how you can be eligible for EC or the eligibility scheme requirements, but I want to briefly touch on that for those who do not know. Secondly, I want to talk about the disparity gap between an EC and a condo and how and why buyers are taking advantage of it. Thirdly, I want to talk about the expected pricing because through some past data, we can do some analysis and we already know what are the expected prices for the upcoming 2 ECs. And fourth and fifth is what you really want to stick on for, because for second timers, right, or basically even first timers as well, you will run generally into this loan eligibility issue. Okay, what am I talking about? I'll cover more later on. You want to stick on for that. And lastly, how then do we solve it using the bridging loan framework? And we have some live examples to show you how it can be done. So let's kick off with the eligibility. I'm quite sure a lot of you already know about this, so I'll quickly run through this. For you to be eligible for an executive condo, of course, you need to have a family nucleus. Joint singles is possible as well if you have 2 singles above 35 years of age. Age-wise, you have to be at least 21 years old to purchase an executive condo. And total income, very important, most people already know about this as well, is that you cannot cross the $16,000 a month income. And lastly, you must not own local and overseas private residential property as well. So of course, there are more eligibility scheme requirements. All can be found on the HDB website. But of course, if you need a more precise check on whether you are eligible for it, do feel free to reach out to our team and our team will be able to check whether you are eligible for this opportunity. So the second part, I want to talk about this thing called the disparity gap between the EC and condo market. So in March this year, right, Orel at Tampines sold at 90% and an average of 1,766 PSF. Is this high? Yes. Right? If you compare it with older ECs, unfortunately, I cannot bring you back to the days of 100 pumps just 7 to 8 years ago, whereby you can buy an EC for 800 PSF. Neither can I bring you back to buy Trillion at Tampines for 700, 800 PSF. And of course, I certainly cannot bring you back to buy like Eden at Tampines for like 400 PSF. Is 1,766 PSF expensive? I would say definitely yes. It's not cheap in today's market. But why did the buyers, or in fact 90% of the buyers, still went ahead to purchase it on 9th of March? Because this is what the buyers know. The buyers know that just 1 month ago, or barely even 1 month ago, right across the street, just within walking distance, an integrated development that is also a condominium as well. Of course, the only difference is that it's a full-fledged condominium integrated with the more convenient, you will say. But that project alone, just across the street, has already sold for an average of 2,360 PSF. Not just asking price, but prices that the market have already accepted. For a buyer that went into Orel at Tampines who are eligible, they will ask themselves, hey, I already know my neighbors already bought at 2,360 and I'm able to enter somewhere around 1,766. Am I sitting on some built-in profits already? So that you already know the answer. But of course, we want a more comprehensive comparison as well. So we don't want to just compare the new launch right beside it. We want to compare some resale projects that recently TOP'd as well. So in Pasir Ris 8, they just TOP in 2025. We have seen that the 1-year accepted average, not just an outlier 1 or 2 transactions that, skew the market, the 1-year accepted average is already 2,043 PSF. Meaning to say, yes, there are lower ones at about 1,947, 2,000, but there are also high ones at 2,142 PSF. And the average works out to be about 2,043 PSF that the market has already comfortably accepted. And another project that you want to commonly compare as well is the massive one at Treasure at Tampines that TOP'd about 2 years ago. So this project with a 1-year accepted average of about 1,772 PSF, with the highest in 13th of May 2025 at 1,987 PSF, also coming to close to 2,000 PSF, meaning to say in the resale market, for a 2-year-old project and a just TOP project, they have already comfortably accepted 2,000 PSF on average. So using this data alone, you can understand why buyers who were eligible for Aura at Tampines, I'm quite sure all of them know that the project right beside them, Tenet, bought much cheaper than them. But even though they know that knowledge, they are still willing to go in comfortably at 1766 PSF on average because they know that the resale market has already comfortably accepted 2,000 PSF in the same area. So of course, we don't have all the data yet, but whatever data I have, I can use it for comparison purposes. So at this time of filming, this is what I know. For Aura Tampines, of course, is a project that's already sold earlier in the year, so we have all the information. So we will use that to gauge what will be the prices for the upcoming 2 ECs in Pasir Ris and Tampines. First of all, of course, I know the name already. This one is a really catchy name. When I saw the name, I was laughing as well. I think it's quite a catchy name. So the one in Pasir Ris will be called Coastal Cabana. Wow, sounds like a nice, like a beach club like that. And for the one in Tampines, Reveal. Correct my pronunciation if it's wrong. Okay, developer-wise, we know it as well. Aura Tampines was by Sim Lian. Coastal Cabana is by Qing Jian. It's a Chinese developer who has a good track record of building good quality ECs as well. For Reveal Tampines, none other than Sim Lian back again, the one who has economies of scale, the one who has done so many projects, especially even in Tampines area as well. So they are no strangers to this area. Number of units, I wouldn't be so concerned with it because all are good size development. Aura was 760, Coastal Cabana 748, River at Tampines still a very healthy 572, which usually means it has full condo facilities. So like for like, this is pretty similar. Of course, what we don't have is the prices for Coastal Cabana, River. But what we do know is that Aurel at Tampines, the lowest selling price was 1650 PSF and the highest selling price was 1882 PSF. On average, 1766 which we already know. And what we know is that the land price of Aurel at Tampines was 721 PSF PPR. Why is this important? Because a developer, when they buy a land, of course, they do need to have construction costs, marketing costs, labor costs, material costs, all the related costs required to build a property. Then they will form a break-even price. From the break-even price, the developers will then decide how much profit margin do they want to sell at. In this case, the developer, after buying the land at 721, after factoring all their costs, they decided to sell at an average PSF about 1766 PSF. Okay, so why is this important to you? While we don't know the prices of Coastal Cabana and River at Tampines, what we already know is the land price. And with the land price, you can do an easy deduction about what is the estimated selling price. So it's very clear. 2 developers actually bought the land a little bit more expensive. So if you are a developer right now, you are a developer of Coastal Cabana and River Tampines, you already bought your land more expensive than Aura at Tampines, and you saw your neighbor Aura at Tampines sold 90% at an average of 1766 PSF, is there a reason to sell lower than this? The answer quite clear is no. So easily we can predict that the starting price of Coastal Cabana and River at Tampines should fall between the range of about 1700 PSF to about 1009 PSF. This would be considered like a fair price. So what I did over here in this slide is that I use a higher average price. Knowing that the average price was 1766 PSF for Aura at Tampines, I want to be a bit more conservative as well. So I put in about another $100 more. I use an average price of about 1850 PSF, and I use the size that was sold at Aurel to make a deduction about roughly what is the estimated pricing for both Coastal Cabana and Riviera Tampines. So if the developers do build a 840 square feet 3-bedder at 1850 PSF, it works out to be a price of about 1.554 million. 872 square feet, the 3-bed compact will be 1.613 mil. If you go so on and so forth, the bigger ones at the 1023 square feet, the 4-bedder will be about 1.892. And lastly, the 5-bedder at 1356 square feet will be about $2.5 million. So here comes an important segment. So I want to slow down for this one here. So there are a lot of questions regarding the MSR issue, that even a Reddit thread was even created just for it. And I do understand the problem that the market is facing. So what is the problem? If you have a 16K income, which just nice, you can buy an EC, and if you're 35 years old, granting you a full 30-year loan, right? Your max loan is actually only $1.005 million. And let's say, if you want to buy a 4-bedder at 1.892, it means that you need an $890,000 CPF and cash down payment. If you are 35 years old and you have this down payment, kudos to you. But of course, not many people may have this sort of down payment, which prompts a question that this Reddit user asked, which is so valid, is that how are people affording ECs with the income cap? Because over here in 2025, I'm quite sure he was referring to Aura at Tampines, the prices start from $1.4 million. Loan-wise, yes, you're getting about 900K 1 mil-ish with the 30% MSR requirement, which is the problem, meaning to say there are people down paying at least $500,000 and likely much more because 1.4 is the lowest floor for the worst unit, and yet ECs are still sold out so quickly. So is it true that Singaporeans really have $500,000 down payment and more? Yes, possibly. But here's where another user who is actually a buyer of the property helped to demystify this issue. So this user, last career 7180, I think really accurately showed how an EC purchase was done. So yes, he's not an agent, so definitely is a buyer. So yes, it's true that, okay, I'm not sure how he knows, but there are quite a handful of buyers who got bulk funding from their families. So I think that is quite a common thing as well. But yes, he also goes on to say that I don't know why people kept saying that 16K income cap can only get 1 mil loan, because he actually got a $1.2 million housing loan. So how did he do it? Fast forward to the bottom here, some clarity on the loan amount. Okay, it seems that the bank loan itself factor in the bonus while EC eligibility doesn't. So that gives you the answer. So for a 16K income, yes, it does give you only a 1 mil loan. But if you are belonging in a situation whereby you have healthy bonuses, that can help you to boost your total loan. So how I know this is that when I was at the Aura of Tampines show flat earlier in the year, I did meet a buyer that actually qualified for $1.5 million in loan. So this actually explains why some buyers are able to buy the property, because they actually have a higher loan. So this is one of the main reasons why we decided to launch this video as fast as you can, because we know that a lot of people might be in this situation whereby they are not sure how much loan they can get. So by coming out with this video early, our thoughts is that if you are able to reach out to us early, that gives us more runway for us to be able to check on your eligibility, check on your loan, to make sure everything is in order so that you can position yourself to take advantage of this opportunity. So once again, if you need a one-to-one consult, do feel free to reach out to our team. Our team will be able to contact you and get all this checked. Okay, so you might be also wondering, is an EC a really savvy investment? Okay, I broke it down very simply here just to give you an idea about what you can potentially expect. Okay, assuming you're going for a 4-bedder, 1023 square feet, assuming the developers built around the same size, that will set you back about 1.892 million. And if you are similar to the previous user here, you are able to get a $1.2 million loan. That means you still have to come up with a hefty $692,000 in down payment. Is it a lot? Yes, it is. I'm not going to deny that. But here's the knowledge that you will have. Knowing that two of your neighbors, number one, Pinery Residence, which is the upcoming new launch where the land price already bought for 1,000 over PSF, meaning to say they have to sell for at least 2,004 PSF and above. So they will be buying at this kind of pricing. And you have neighbors at Parktown Residence, which we covered earlier. They have comfortably bought well over 2,400 PSF as well. That means to say, for a neighbor that bought a similar size unit in the upcoming Pinery and already bought at Parktown Residence, they already paid up to $2.455 million for the same size property. So why is this important? Because in 2034, when you are selling this property, assuming you buy at 1.892, fast forward 8 years later. How did I calculate 8 years? 3 years of construction, 5 years of stay to fulfill your MOP. So that brings us to 2034. You just need to sell your property at the price that Parktown Residence and Pinery Residence bought in 2025. And that will already net you a gross profit of about 563,000. So this is like a super conservative calculation. Of course, I have not factored in things like your stamp duty, agency fees, interest and all that. I'm just saying it from a very, very conservative standpoint. You are selling in 2034, which is 8 years later, but you only need to sell back at a price that people already bought in 2025, and you already will be sitting on a $563,000 gross profit. So by then, do Pinery Residents and do Parktown people, when they buy at 2004, do they need to sell at 2005, 2006, 2007? Yes, they do. But do you need to? Because you only bought in at 1892, which is about 1007, 1008 PSF. Actually, you don't need to. So you see the disparity there? You see the opportunity there? I put this very simply. Of course, investment gurus might hate on this one, but I just put a very simple one. If you invested 692,000, which is your down payment, over 8 years to get a return of a very, very, very conservative, we already explained why, of 563,000, that already nets you a 10% yield year on year. And on top of that, this is a physical product. You can stay in it, you can enjoy, you can grow your family, you can enjoy the convenience of it. It's a physical, tangible product that you can hold on to. I think it sounds like a really attractive kind of proposition. So that's the reason why I think what Minister Common once said in 2013 still holds a bit of water today. For an EC, right, it's offering you a Lexus at a Corolla price. But of course, only Singaporeans have this privilege. Is EC today Corolla price? No, of course not. EC prices have gone up so much. So I would like to change the statement a little bit. While it does hold water, this is a statement I would like to say about EC, is that buying an EC is like paying yesterday's price but you have the knowledge and you only need to sell at today's selling price. So built-in profit is there. I think it's almost like a controversial word to say, almost like a no-brainer deal. So okay, if you are a first-timer buyer, that is probably what you need to hear. If you are ready, you want to check out whether you have this ability to be eligible for it, my QR code is over there. You can scan. My WhatsApp number is somewhere probably in the description as well. You can scan that. You can contact me. Our team will get in contact with you to check on all this. If you are a second timer, which is probably a lot of you watching this video as well, I do understand some of your pain points and I want to address them and see how we can solve them for you. Okay, so continue here if you are a second timer. If you are a second timer, I know your pain points, right? Number one, you are living in your current HDB flat and you're planning to use your sales proceed or your CPF refund to fund the EC. That is very natural in an upgrading move because why all your funds are stuck in the current house, be it your cash, be it your CPF refund. And buying this EC, right, you actually may run into a short-term cash flow issue. I'll explain more later in the next slide. So what happens is that, in order to solve this, right, there is such a thing called a deferred payment scheme plus a bridging loan, right, that is crafted specially for HDB upgraders like yourself. This helps you to cover the shortfall temporarily, and I'll explain to you more in the next few slides. Okay, but first, I need you to understand this concept first when it comes to buying an EC or a private property. So for EC or private property, right, please understand this sequence of payment, meaning to say you have to use your cash first, then you can use your CPF, and following which you can use your loan later on. So just remember this part here, I'll explain more later on. Cash first, then CPF, then loan. But let me explain a little bit about the difference between the normal payment scheme and the deferred payment scheme. If you're going for the normal payment scheme, typically you will grant the OTP on the booking day, you pay 5%. Within 9 weeks of signing the SMP, you will pay the 15% buyer's stamp duty and legal fees. And once the foundation is completed, let's say give it another 6 months, you will pay the 5% down payment for the foundation and your loan will start to kickstart progressively. So that is for the normal payment scheme. But I want to focus on the deferred payment scheme because this is where the second timers will be usually using. Because for the deferred payment scheme, you just need to be able to settle the 5% down payment in granting the OTP, the 15%, the buyer's stamp duty, and the legal fees, and everything else can be deferred. So let's just sit on that. I'll use another chart to explain to you more in detail. So why in the first place deferred payment scheme? Because there is a fundamental misalignment between when the payment is due and when your funds are available. So MSR, right, the mortgage servicing ratio actually limits your loan and you cannot secure the full 75% loan because of the MSR ruling. That is very, very normal. So your CPF funds is also stuck in your current HDB flat and your cash proceeds is also stuck in your current HDB flat. That leaves a cash flow gap in this situation. So the EC deferred bridging loan is crafted specially to help fill up this shortfall. How does it work? It allows you to sell your HDB at your own pace, at your own price, and it helps you to unlock your CPF OA and sale proceed, most importantly, before your HDB is sold. So how does it work? There are a few possible scenarios. Scenario 1, Scenario 2, I probably won't cover because the one important one that I want to cover is where most people will actually be in this situation, which is you are able to secure partial loan, not the full 75% loan. You do have sufficient CPF and cash for the 20%, but you don't have enough for the shortfall. This is a very common scenario for all the BTO upgraders. We have served quite a handful of them and generally they fall into this scenario C. So let me give you an example. So for the typical ones, you will pay the one in white over here, your OTP is 5%, S&P is 15%, you will settle another 65% progressively, and then when the property hits CSC, you will pay the other 15%. So that's a typical payment tranches. But for the bridging loan, right, let's say the client has about 13% in cash, they have about 14% in CPF, and they can only secure a 63% loan, leaving them a gap of about 10% here. So that's where the bridging loan comes in to fill up this gap, because when you see in this scenario, as I was trying to say earlier, you're using your cash first, then your CPF, then your loan. So it fulfills this sequence over here. This is possible. So that's why bridging loan exists. Without bridging loan, for the same client, this is how it's going to look like. The client with the same 13% cash will pay first, and this portion over here, they cannot use their CPF. It's because why? If they were to use their CPF earlier upfront over here, there will be this gap right over here that they have to use cash once again. And that will actually totally ruin the sequence because that will mean the sequence will be cash, CPF, cash, loan. Once again, we remember the fundamentals that you must use your cash first, CPF, and then your loan last. So in this scenario, when there's a shortfall, the client still can proceed, but they have to make sure that this 10% right over here, they must have the physical cash. So if you have reached this far, I just want to thank you for staying for so long. Do like and subscribe to this channel, and we hope to present more of this kind of value to you in the upcoming weeks. So okay, you might say, Darren, you got me interested in this bridging loan. How do we do the calculation? So here's an example. So for a bridging loan, right, what you do is that you take 80% of your HDB market value, minus away your outstanding loan, minus away your CPF refund amount, which is your principal plus accrued interest. That will give you an estimated cash proceeds. So your total maximum bridging loan that you'll be eligible for is not how much you want to loan, but rather how much you qualify for, which is your cash proceeds from the house plus the CPF refund using this calculation over here. Okay, so to put it in context, I have a real life example of a client. Of course, the names are not real, but the numbers are accurate to their scenario. So this is what most BTO owners will be in this kind of situation. So this client, Jack and Jill, they want to purchase a property EC of about 1.9 million. They are going for the DPS, the Deferred Payment Scheme. Their HDB is worth about $800,000 and their current OA has about $150,000. And like the Reddit user, they managed to secure a loan of about $1.2 million. How do we calculate what is the maximum bridging loan amount that we have? The HDB market value is $800,000. We take 80% of the market value, that works out to be $640,000. I minus away their outstanding loan, which was about $250,000. I minus away their CPF refund, the principal plus accrued interest, that is another $200,000. Leaving them a cash proceeds of $190,000. So the maximum bridging loan amount that they qualify for is the CPF refund of $200,000 plus the cash proceeds of $190,000, giving them $390,000 in maximum bridging loan. So this will be how they can successfully purchase this EC of 1.9 mil while keeping their $800,000 HDB flat. So what we mentioned earlier, they do have their $150,000 CPF OA. I will first use that to pay for the stamp duty, $64,600. I'll use that to pay for the legal fees as well, which is $3,000, leaving them with $82,400 that I can use for the down payment. Okay, so let's start from the back. With a $1.2 million loan for a purchase price of $1.9 million, that works out to be a 63% loan that they managed to qualify for. So that leaves them a gap of about 17%, which we will later cover in the bridging loan. So let's go right to the start. During the OTP, of course, standard, there will be the 5% cash down payment that they require. And because their CPF OA only has about $82,400 after minusing the stamp duty and legal fees, that works out to be about 4.3% that I can use for the down payment. Meaning to say they still got to top up another 10.7% in cash, that is about $202,000. So what is the shortfall here? The shortfall is actually the $320,000, which is about 17%. This is where they can utilize the bridging loan. Do they qualify for $320,000? We look at our previous calculation. Yes, they do. They qualify for up to $390,000, but right over here, they only need about $320,000 to be able to bridge the difference. So you can see here, this fulfills the whole criteria of being cash first, then CPF, then loan. So this will be a possible way of how they can purchase the unit. So you might ask, is this all worth it to go through all this kind of hassle or using DPS and doing all that planning, right? Without bridging loan, of course, you can do it as well, but you will need to sell your HDB first. So similar to like new launch condos, which you got no two ways around it, you do have to sell your HDB first, you do have to go and rent or do have to go and stay with your family. Even if you are willing to do so, right, for this EC, what if you don't get a good ballot number and you don't even get a unit? That means all your plans of selling, going to stay with family, all that they are willing to trouble yourself, but end up you still cannot buy a unit. So that's the risk sometimes if you don't go for the deferred payment scheme with the bridging loan. So what is the benefits with the bridging loan? It allows you to use your CPF OA for part of the 15% down payment. And the best part of all, which what our clients enjoy when they bought the EC early in the year is, they do not require to sell their existing HDB flat. Yes, do they have to come up with cash from their own pocket? Yes, the answer is still yes. But what they get in return is the comforts of not needing to sell their HDB flat. The family can still stay in the HDB all the way closer to TOP before we start selling the property. So that will enable them to have a seamless transaction from one property to the other. So we have come to the end of the video to highlight some of the common concerns and issues when we are buying an EC. But of course, we do understand that every situation is unique. So do feel free to scan our QR code to contact us via WhatsApp, and our team will get in contact with you to share with you or to explain to you or to understand more about your scenario so that we know whether you can take advantage of this opportunity. So that's it. I'll catch you for the next video. Peace.